We'd love to retire in the next 10 years. I'm 47. I've got 25 years of service. Husband is 56. He's got 30 years of service in. We really want to use this time right now to see where we stand, making sure that we're doing the right things for a successful transition into retirement. This was part of a conversation I had recently with a couple who was considering, what the next 10 years might bring for them. A little backstory on this. I love telling these stories because I think there's so much we can learn and take from them, but I'll give you a little context here. So this couple had met 25 years ago when she was starting her federal career. They moved around a little bit, but spent the majority of their time here in the DC area. One of her big goals was to become a senior executive, to become an SES. And she accomplished that a few years ago. Upon getting into the position, it became a grind, right? It's a lot of work and it's demanding. And so it starts prompting those questions of how long do I want to continue to work like this? You already got more than 20 years of service in. How long can I continue working like this? Do I want to work like this? And so she started asking those questions and thinking about, what do the scenarios look like if I go out at MRA before my minimum retirement age, after it, just so she has all the information. And one of the big questions that they had outside of that, because they felt like they were going to be fine with their FERS annuities and Social Security kicking in and the amount of money they have in TSPs, was tax planning, right? So one of the big issues within their situation is the balance sheet is really heavy when it comes to TSP pre-tax money. And so, upon listening to things that we've been talking about and she's been hearing about in other places, started to get concerned about, RMDs pushing into higher tax brackets and really just not being on the right side of that equation. So something we want to look at here, in addition to just what's the right move. This is a classic example of that intersection between how much is enough and, hey, we're going to leave some money on the table so we can reclaim our lives. We can reclaim our time. So the situation looks like this. On their balance sheet, as I mentioned, they both have pre-tax TSP accounts. His has about $1 million in it. Hers has about $750,000 in it. Okay. They also have a brokerage account that's invested in some index funds worth about $250,000. Got some home equity. So that's really the balance sheet. Those TSPs, all pre-tax, as I mentioned. So that's going to weigh pretty heavy on things moving forward as they continue to compound and grow. They're maxing both of those accounts out, contributing about $1,000 a month to the brokerage account. So healthy balance sheet from a financial planning standpoint. Now, their FERS annuities I mentioned, they've got a ton of service already. And so these annuities are going to be really healthy. He's probably going to go to 62. If we index his current salary for inflation, he's going to run out to be somewhere around 180,000. He's going to get the 1.1% multiplier at age 62. And so his pension is going to come out to be a little over $71,000 a year. For her, she's going to go another 10 years, hopefully, to hit MRA at 57. Her salary index for inflation, pay raises, etc., probably around 225, something like that within the next 10 years. She'll have her 35 years of service times 1%. And, that's going to give her about a $78,000 pension. It's about $150,000 in pensions when they go out in 10 years. Well, he'll go out a little bit early in 6. She'll hang on for the full 10. Social Security will kick in for him. If he wants to take it early, she'll have access to the SRS when she, hits MRA. So lots of income from the guaranteed side of that equation between Social Security and the FERS annuities. So the question really is going to become how much do they need to take from their TSPs early on to supplement what they're doing from an income standpoint. Their goals really for retirement are pretty straightforward. It's just, hey, let's have a simple, secure, stable lifestyle. We want to set our son up for the future, no college debt. We want to give him a solid foundation when it comes to being a young professional. And outside of that, we want to travel and do the things we like to do. So nothing really out of the ordinary when it comes to major purchases, any major goals, major spending items that we're going to have to account for. So they probably won't need to draw too much from their TSP accounts, which leads to those things ballooning and growing and growing and growing on a pre-tax basis. Perfect candidate for RMDs to become a problem, push them into much higher tax brackets. I want to show you an example here, and I've just created a sample client to kind of model the scenario that we're talking about so we can kind of see where tax rates go. This is just hypothetical information. So if we look at this tax estimate, they've got about 1.7 million in TSP assets right now. In 10 years, if they continue to make contributions, I'm projecting at an 8% rate of return, they're going to have somewhere between $4 and $4.5 million in pre-tax TSP money just in 10 years. Now that's going to continue to run out because they don't need to take too much money from these accounts to supplement their retirement income in the beginning. What's going to happen is the accounts are going to continue to compound and grow depending on how they have them invested, building in a glide path where they're taking less risk. Obviously, the accounts are going to remain invested depending on what their goals are, depending on how much risk they want to take. It will determine the hypothetical rate of return. But you can see here their current tax bracket. So they're in the 24% tax bracket. We're modeling the Tax Cut and Jobs Act to change and go back to the previous level. So it would be a 28% tax bracket. And things stay pretty consistent there until we get up to RMD age. And we can see based on that $4.5 million at age, 57 for her, continuing to grow and snowball all the way out out to when they're both in their 70s and 80s, it gets to be such a big account, such a large portion, that the distributions on a percentage basis that are coming out are creating large dollar amounts to push you into the next highest tax bracket. So that's why this jumps up into, you know, a higher level here, 33%, and then into the highest tax bracket as RMDs continue to become a larger and larger percentage based on that life expectancy. So she is right to actually question whether this is an issue. And what we can do about this, when they first retire, their tax rates may drop, right? Because the income is going to come off depending on how much they pull from investments. There may be an opportunity to do some Roth conversions there. And right now, they should consider doing some more money towards Roth accounts, maybe even funding them entirely, giving up the pre-tax deductions that they're getting, you know, in the current year. So you give up a little bit of a current year benefit, get some money in that Roth bucket. So you're pulling things away from the pre-tax and creating a little more diversification over the next 10 years or however long they plan to work. So I think that's a really good idea for them to try to smooth this out a little bit and take away some of that issue. Roth conversions can be another option. I didn't mention, but they're in the 24% tax bracket. So to me, that's that gray area where you can go either way between traditional versus Roth contributions and feel pretty good about it. If you're in one of those higher tax brackets, you may wait for a conversion strategy just because the numbers may work more in your favor that way. When you leave service, you leave work, and your tax rates drop even further, then you can be on the right side of that equation when you do conversions. So lots to think about here, but I think she was right in feeling a little bit of pressure around what's going on from the pre-tax standpoint. Where should we be directing our money? How should we be investing it? Those sort of questions. These are things that we really need to look at because they can play a really big role later in retirement. So hope you found this useful. Just wanted to share that story with you. Real-time example of what people are facing and what people are going through as they're continuing to plan a successful transition from their working years into retirement. And the numbers are good here, but the numbers aren't always the only part of the equation. Obviously, if you're feeling burnout and overworked, then, you know, you got to sit back and take a really hard look at what your priorities are and making the numbers work potentially. If you've enjoyed this, would appreciate if you give us a like and a share and forward to a friend or a colleague. And until next time.